Diving Deep are episodes where I talk to my guests about their life experiences, their wisdom and knowledge, creating a space to share stories, connect, and give others hope. I truly believe we can learn from each other, and knowing someone has overcome what we might be going through can give us the power, hope, and faith to overcome our battles as well. I truly hope you enjoyed these videos. Don't forget to share, subscribe, like, and hit the notifications button. Next to me I have Audrey, and Audrey is Alaina's mom. I've released a video with a conversation with Alaina, and I just want to say that we often say that there's behind a great man there's a great woman, but there's also a great woman behind Alaina and all her daughters. And so I want to start off this conversation by just letting you introduce more about yourself and how you got into Harvard, and talking a little bit about that.
Okay, well, as Anita said, I have Alaina and 3 other daughters and a son. And when I graduated with an English degree back in 1981, there were not many good jobs for English majors, and so I went to work in a company in Boston, and they found out that I was fairly well skilled and suggested that I go to Harvard grad school and get a degree that would help them.
Yeah.
So that's what I did, and fortunately for me, they paid for it, and so I worked in Boston in business for about 7 years, but I've spent the rest of my life teaching.
What do you like the most about teaching?
The students. I mean, just seeing those moments when they, those aha moments, when they really get something, or they become enthusiastic about learning something.
That's beautiful. I know you just came back from Indonesia.
I did.
How was that?
So I went on sabbatical to Indonesia, where I lived on Java, and I had 2 motivations. Yes, to teach abroad, but also to spend some time with family. And I got a qualification from Cambridge University. I got a CELTA certificate. So I got to teach students who were studying for exams, so TOEFL students who wanted to study in either the US or Canada, IELTS, international English students who wanted to study in like Japan, Europe, Australia, and I had some business women who executive secretaries. And since I was one many years ago, we had a special connection. So it was really fun and rewarding. Yeah.
Now we're gonna get into a little bit more of a deeper conversation, and I just want to thank her for sharing her story with us, and personally with me. And the first question is, when you went into your relationship, did you have any red flags that you decided to maybe ignore at the moment, but eventually they showed up stronger?
So if you're referring to my ex-husband, and no, we began as friends, and I remember telling somebody at a conference, we were talking about relationships, that I had married the kindest man I'd ever known.
Wow.
And it was, but over time, an extended period of time, he began to show symptoms of, I wasn't sure what then. Ultimately, it turned out to be bipolar disorder. But there is a difference between somebody who will help themselves and somebody who maybe can accept the diagnosis and therefore doesn't help himself or herself. And I think this was the case with my ex-husband. I was determined, as we were a Catholic family. I was raised Catholic. He's very Catholic. And so the concept of divorce wasn't really part of my language. And so as things got more difficult, I would go literally to 100% of his appointments, to his appointments with psychiatrists, to kind of make sure the information was accurate, to be supportive, etc. But when somebody doesn't always follow what the doctor has suggested, it makes it very difficult on the rest of the family. And eventually things just got worse and got somewhat physical, like a little bit violent, not everyday violence, but. And then I decided I had to make a decision when the kids are involved. You have to. So my decision basically was, okay, do I save the 5 kids and myself, sacrifice one, or do all 7 become sacrificed?
Wow.
And so for me, I decided that as a parent, I needed to do what was the healthiest thing for my children, as hard as that was going to be for them.
Yeah.
Too, because there are no real winners in divorce. Everybody gets hurt, no matter how you divide it up. Everybody gets hurt.
Wow.
And I think some of those hurts have a ripple effect and really last a lifetime, but you don't always see it at the moment. You see it in different ways later.
Wow. How have you seen that?
I think for glimpses of what I see with the children, it's that sense of loss, a sense of abandonment. It's difficult to see physical dad, but mentally dad's really not there. That kind, wonderful husband, that man I married, I know he's there somewhere underneath all that, but he kind of disappeared. And so I think that skews the way you look at relationships. And so I think in their own ways, we all have looked through that lens at relationships.
What was the scariest thing for you to take that step?
To tell you the truth, it wasn't really an emotional thing, because once there was an incident that occurred that made it very clear to me, crystal clear, that it was best to be divorced. So once I sort of made that call to the lawyer the next day after that event, I never looked back, because I knew it was the right call. However, the scariest thing for me, I won't say the scariest thing, but a very scary thing, was dealing with the financial devastation. And wondering for years, is this the year I'm going to lose my house?
Wow.
So, because it's not just any house, it's on family property. It's been in the family for hundreds of years, literally. So there was a different kind of emotional attachment that I worried about. Obviously, making sure that the kids were safe and sound and all that was important. But it wasn't necessarily scary, but it was definitely a challenge. But I had help. I had nearby relatives. I had a very caring community who did a lot for us.
That's so wonderful. And I'm just so impressed, and I admire your strength, because some women are, even when they see all the signs, even when they repeatedly see multiple things there that are not right, they still continue to be in that relationship. How did you get that strength inside of you? Was it your children?
I think it was 2 things. And it actually goes back to my own parents. So when I lost my dad, who was my best friend at age 17, he died right in front of me. It was the most difficult thing I'd ever gone through. And I remember thinking, nothing will ever be so difficult. And I've kind of carried that all my life, because to a 17-year-old, that it is true. So if I can get through that, I will get through anything.
Wow, that's so powerful.
So that was part of it. But the other thing too is my mother always said, you have your children, they didn't ask to be born. A parent sacrifices for their children. And that was an ingrained lesson.
Wow. You're going to make me cry. You're so powerful.
No, so it was an ingrained lesson. So you step aside and put the kids first. I mean, people have asked over the years, so, what did you do, or what was so difficult? And I said, or what's your answer, or you should, right? And the answer is really, really simple. The answer is really, really simple. When you have children, it's simple. And it's just to put the kids first. The rest can get figured out.
Wow. And that is like going off of what you said, like when your father passed away, it gave you this strength that nothing will ever like bring you down. And perspective from that is so important, because you could have allowed that moment in your life to be like, no, I'm a victim, and like you develop the strength from that situation.
Well, and there are two things I want to say about perspective. One, I'll address that first. So I was just telling a friend this the other day, and I don't even know if my daughter here knows this, but when he did die, of course, he was taken to the hospital, even though we know he died in the living room. Yeah. And I remember my mom, who had been part-time nurse's aide, she was at work when it happened. We went to the hospital, and once the doctor said there was nothing they could do, my mother wanted to see him. So I went in the room with her. And I remember thinking, like, I saw him, my dad lie, just on the gurney. And it's so strange, but I can even feel it today. I felt this, two things. I felt this, like, just huge thrust of strength. And I knew, I said, that's not him. Like, his spirit, that is not him. That's just his body. And I felt this, like, wisdom that came with it. It's funny to try to say, but that's how I felt. And then the other thing you mentioned, perspective. So since that time, when things have gotten rough or bumpy, sometimes I tell people, because they ask me to, so, how do you stay, whatever, on track? Or I said, well, I look at both ends of the spectrum. So on the one hand, right, I saw actually both my parents die in front of my eyes. My mom was almost 33, but my dad when I was 17. But on the other end of the spectrum, I had 5 beautiful, healthy kids. So when you look at the life and death, all the rest is changeable, flexible, it'll work out.
Controllable.
Controllable. And if it's not controllable, okay, so you make an adjustment.
Yeah.
But when you kind of you've seen and been at both ends of that spectrum, that's just a good perspective. And I think people need to think about what vantage point helps them see the world in a stronger way, or in a way that makes them feel, I don't know, more balanced. Or, I mean, it's not like every day is perfect. It's certainly not, because I'm human. but I always, probably there isn't more than, there's more than a day or two that goes by that I don't have that image in my head,
Wow, that's so powerful. How did you become this, like, I didn't know you before, and like just learning about you right now, and it's just like, you're such a wonderful woman. But often, I think something that stops women from taking the steps they want to do, or like even going on new adventures, taking on a business, something they truly want to do, is failure. How did you overcome that?
So sometimes I will kind of, in a half-joking way, but I do mean it, say, and I've said this to friends, like, I'm pretty sure people on the deathbed don't say, oh, I wish I failed at more things, or, oh, I wish I didn't try that. I think, when you're hopefully conscious on your deathbed, you're thinking, I did what I wanted to do.
Wow.
And I didn't, there were risks that had to be taken, but if you don't take a risk, then you don't reap the benefits. Yeah. Or if you live in fear, then to me that's just not living. So I kind of look at that, and I've joked about recently, because it's my birthday, turning 60.
Happy birthday!
Yeah, that like 2/3 of my life is probably over. Maybe not. Maybe it's a little bit more. I feel like why not? If I want to go someplace, then go. If I want to, I'm still gonna continue to teach. I hope I can teach another 10 years. But I think if you hold back too much, because it's not just your life and what you want to do. I also believe, as both a parent and a teacher, that people are watching, and so everything is a lesson.
Yeah.
So for my students, like for example, something like, driving downtown in the little town I live in without a seatbelt. Well, I would never do that because if I were in an accident and I didn't have my seatbelt on, what would that teach my students?
Yeah, wow.
so
Yeah.
So I kind of look at it like, well, everything's a little lesson for somebody who might be watching.
Yeah. And going off of that, because you're a teacher, so, and even when we share our own perspective, we cannot tell a person to live their life this way if you're not doing it for yourself.
Right.
And that's so powerful.
Right. And because of that, in a way, I spent years, I don't know if I'm done doing this, but I spent years taking students abroad just to have them experience just a little bit of a different culture, or just get out of mid-coast Maine and just, see that there's, the world is both bigger and not so big at the same time. And people are people, it doesn't matter where you are.
That's true. How was your self-esteem affected by your divorce, and how did you gain it back? Or is this still a work in progress?
Yeah, I think there are things I wish I had done better. I haven't looked at it like self-esteem, but it probably is tied to that. Obviously, I mean, on the very first level, being a married Catholic, woman, it's kind of like, well, that could be seen as a failure. But, you can, I don't necessarily think that any religion has all the right answers for everybody, but spiritually it may. So in that sense, at that very almost superficial level, it felt like a failure. I think in hindsight, looking back at things I missed that I didn't catch when you are trying to juggle like full-time work and multiple jobs.
Yeah.
And 5 kids, you're trying to juggle. you think you get all the balls in the air, but you might have dropped one. You didn't realize it. So I'm sure. I know there are times when I just missed things. Maybe the feelings of my youngest children, or maybe the feelings of my oldest daughters. Or like I think I wasn't always tuned in.
Okay.
And in that sense, it made me feel at times like I could have been a better mother.
But I think that you having multiple jobs, it was hard for you to be there.
Well, yeah, but luckily they're teaching jobs. So one is the local university, and the other one's full-time high school. So I also have just happened to luck into the high school teaching schedule when all my kids were in school. So I was on their same schedule. So that helped. So I did go to just about every game. I'm not every single one, but probably 98% of them, and that sort of thing. So I made sure that I was able to, to meet the same schedule, so I could do those things. But I just think that I'm sure that there are things that I missed, and and then I'll hear something from one of the kids. It's like, I never thought about that when you were young, because I was a little caught up in making sure the bills get paid and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, what's your favorite phrase? What do you go by?
My favorite phrase.
When you're feeling down, you're like, oh, this is my quote. I gotta go by this.
I don't know that I have a favorite phrase, but I do, and again, I don't know if my daughter sitting here is aware that, going again back to that very impactful day when I lost my dad, the last words he said to me was, "You're a lucky girl." And then he died. So I kind of feel like, yeah, I am a lucky girl. I have a lot.
Wow.
And so that's always kind of kept me, I had the love of parents, I've got wonderful children, I've got a job and community I love, and, and seem to reciprocate a lot of that love. So, yeah, I am a lucky girl.
That's such a good phrase, because when you're feeling down, and then sometimes you think about how bad your situation is, but then you compare your life to other people who are in worse situations, you are really a lucky girl,
Yeah.
Wow, that's so powerful. What advice do you have for women who are thinking about divorce, who have overcome divorce, and just going through that process?
Well, I think especially women with children. The children will be healthier and happier if you are healthy and happy. Or at least healthy. Maybe you're not always happy, but so like I knew I had to take care of me if I was going to take care of them. So, and if that meant we had, as I said, had to sort of sacrifice the one for the many, then that's part of it. So it's okay. Like, and I know my kids will probably laugh, but if I say, well, it's okay to put yourself first sometimes, because usually mom puts kids first. But if you don't kind of think about, well, what do I need, or what do I need so that I can stay healthy enough to take care of the kids? Sometimes that helps make that decision. For somebody who is married but doesn't have children, and maybe is in an abusive situation and one where there's betrayal, I think that women need to feel like they can validate themselves as human beings equally as the partner that they're trying to stay with or think they should stay with, because her life is just as important as his. And
do you think women seek validation in their relationship?
I mean, I think we all seek validation in friendships and all kinds of relationships, but I think a lot of women, particularly women in America, still have that Disney meet the prince and get married and live happily ever after idea.
I'm one of those.
Yeah, right? I mean, everybody grows up with that, right? And so, but it doesn't always, like, that model doesn't have to be the one that works for you. It could be just a different version of that.
Yeah. And sometimes we're not tuning to maybe have that option, and we're just so focused on that.
Right. And it's really hard, and this is something I've continuously worked on, is finding the happiness inside first.
How do you do that?
Not relating, not waiting for somebody else to give you your happiness.
Wow.
That's something I still work at.
What are something you have done to be able to do it?
So for me, I think in part has to do. The minute I say this, it's going to sound contradictory, but being work that I feel passionate about. So even when they're hard days, I mean, even the best job in the world has difficult days, right? Sure. And when I first started teaching at the high school, I probably cried nearly every night. I thought it was the worst decision I ever made that first year.
Yeah.
But then I realized that it's actually something that makes me feel more like me. It's a passion I have to work with young people and teach and see them kind of see them excel, or see them progress in a way that maybe they didn't know they could, or that sort of thing. And so it makes me feel like there's purpose to what I do, and I think people, no matter what your job is or your profession, I think you need to feel some sort of purpose that makes you feel better about yourself, because you feel like I think I have a role here. Maybe I can make a tiny bit of difference for one kid. And so I think that's helped me. But again, it's a little bit external because I'm talking about my job.
Yeah.
But I think I've always thought too. I mean, I'm also I tend to be a glass half full person. It's like I always looking to see the positive in this.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's naive, but sometimes happiness is, and happiness even is a word. Maybe it's contentment. That's the word. That's better. Sometimes that's a choice. You choose to see everything in a negative way. Choose to see everything in a positive way, or try to choose to extract lessons. Even when things are very negative, maybe there's a lesson that's a positive lesson. And some lessons are really hard to learn, and you don't want to learn them. But in the end, maybe years later, you realize, that's why I needed to learn that lesson.
Wow, that's so true. We should remember that. What are the books you've recommended to some of your students?
Oh gosh, well, I teach British literature.
Yeah.
So
The Great Gatsby.
So I do teach Gatsby. But I think one that I really enjoy because so many people misunderstand what it's about is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. First of all, the general public thinks, Frankenstein's like the monster. Of course, he's not. The monster is unnamed because we all have feelings like the monster experienced as an outcast and being alienated. And, I tell my students, look, if she could write that when she was 19, you can read it at 18. And it's all about, having ambition from the doctor's point of view, from Dr. Frankenstein's point of view, having ambition for yourself to the point where you harm others, and you don't want to do that. So it's important to extract that lesson. But the lesson of the monster, this hideous monster who only wants community, only wants to be loved. His father abandoned him. His creator abandoned him because he was so hideous. And they were just these, and it's very beautifully written, But I think it says a lot about humanity and the way we interact with each other and shouldn't interact with each other. And kids usually are really, they're like, wow, I didn't know it was like this. There's a very poignant time when the monster has been watching this family from this little hovel, and he sees what real family unity is. He sees what love is because he's been on the run. And the old man is blind, the family goes off for the day, and he's there. And so he makes his way in the house, he knocks, he gets invited in, and the old man is so kind to him because he can't see him. Wow. And when the family comes home, they're petrified, and they literally hurl him out of the house. And so it's like his last hope of being part of community is destroyed. And I think that we, if you look at the political issues today and issues of people sort of being relegated to this other, is just not good. It hurts all of us. So that's one that stands out in terms of many lessons that people don't expect to see in a book called Frankenstein.
Yeah, I didn't know either. I had to read that book. What are some last advice you would like to give out? Just something I missed that you would like to share?
I don't know. I think it sounds corny, but sometimes I do listen when people say things like, live each day as though it's your last. You don't always never be angry with somebody when you leave them. If you have a chance to say I love you, say it. Those kinds of things, because as I learned, life can be very fleeting, and you don't want either things left unsaid, or you don't want to say things that should not be said.
That's so true. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
And remember that you're a lucky girl. Bye.